Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Tony Martinez, and I am going to share another distressed property market update. Today is September 7th, 2022. I try to get these done at least once a month, once every month and a half, to kind of keep folks in the loop as to what's going on out there with distressed properties. Some of you know me already, but for those of you that have never met me before, some quick information. I am one of you. I am a licensed real estate broker in the great state of Florida. I've been given several titles. Some of them I don't want to share with the public because not good ones, but I'm pretty proud of this one, Master Short Sale Instructor. I got this all the way back. I think it was in 2011. No. Let's go back to 2009 when I was first working for the CDPE as an instructor and trainer of trainers, and I got to 5,000 agents that I have trained in the course. So I'm pretty excited about that. Right now, personally, if I were to be able to put a number on it, I would say I've trained at least 15,000. That's probably pretty conservative. 15,000 agents on short sales. And I'm now very blessed to be the owner of the CDPE, the Certified Distressed Property Expert. I know several of you on the call are either current CDPEs because you just recently went through my course. Some of you may be what I call OGs. You're part of the old guard or original gangsters. You were part of the CDPE movement prior to it shutting down and me buying it last year and bringing it back. So that's a little bit about me, but what are we going to cover today? I ask this question a lot, it's posed of me a lot. Are we in for another wave of foreclosures? And then, since I am passionate about helping people avoid foreclosure, I try to do everything I can to teach agents what the consequences to foreclosure is so that they can convey that properly to individuals that they're attempting to rescue from that scenario. If somebody cannot keep the home and we want them to stay in their home, believe it or not, it's kind of counterintuitive. We as CDPEs do everything we can to help people stay in their home. But when they can't stay and they have to leave, they either are shown to the curb by the sheriff or we help them exit with some dignity. Well, if they have equity, that's a regular sale. But if they don't have equity, I teach agents how to do short sales. And the vast majority of real estate agents in the market today have never done a short sale. The vast majority of agents in the market today have not been through the kind of market we had in 2008. So what's happening now and what's going to happen in the next year or two is going to be a rude awakening for a lot of agents. So I want to share with you a little bit of short sales 101. I feel if I deliver some really good content to you at no charge to you, that you'll allow me at the very end to spend 5 to 7 minutes showing you what my course can do for you, the CDPE, and why you should take it and earn this designation. And then if you stick with me all the way to the very end, not only do I reward you with some special pricing, but I also give you a bonus tip, a bonus lead generation tip on distressed properties that whether you ever become a CDP or not, this is something that you can go ahead and use. So do we have a deal? Great. Well, is another wave coming? So here's the thing. Let me tell you the little disclaimer part, because all speakers need to do this at the very beginning. I want to make sure that you guys understand that I'm not here sharing any kind of legal or financial advice or any of that stuff. And I'm certainly not an economist, something that I'm not necessarily proud of or wasn't initially, but I've become more and more proud as time goes on. I never graduated from college. In fact, I never even graduated from high school, but I'm self-taught. I love to read. I keep my ear to the ground, listening and watching what's going on. I don't think you have to be an economist to be able to form an intelligent opinion, a knowledgeable opinion on what you think is happening. This is what I can't stand. I can't stand when I come across individuals in the marketplace that take this approach. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. You know, if you've ever worked with distressed homeowners, you know that a lot of them get so freaked out being in foreclosure that they don't even open up the mail anymore. When they get letters from the lender, from the courthouse, from attorneys, they don't even open it. That's not a strategy. That's not a plan. And putting your head in the sand thinking, I don't want this. No, that's not a strategy either. We need to be aware of what's happening, the shift that's going on in our market. And here's the thing, everyone is entitled to their own opinions. I'm a big believer in that, but we're not entitled to our own facts. That's a different story. So if I'm coming here and say, hey guys, I got a bad feeling. I got a feeling that we're going to see a lot more foreclosures in the near future. I got a feeling that the market is taking a shift. Okay, I could say that, but can I back it up with any numbers? So jot these down. And again, even if I'm going too fast for you, you're going to get the recording later on this afternoon. So don't worry about that. So one of my favorite sources for data with pertaining real estate is Adam. You go to Adam Data. And just looking at this information here, let me see if I can move this out of the way so I can see better. All right, foreclosure starts. So basically, this is when it's filing. A lot of times people don't understand that just because you miss one payment doesn't automatically put you in foreclosure. By law, on the Fannie and Freddie loans, they have to wait at least 120 days. So by the time most of these foreclosure actions begin formally and legally, they are at least 4 months into the process. When you get that far into the process, it starts to become less and less likely that you can recover from that. That's just the numbers that support that. But so here's what we're seeing. You see the number on the bottom right. This is the first half of 2022. The numbers are now up 219% versus the first half of the year before. So here's what we're getting. We are seeing the numbers start to approach pre-COVID numbers. Foreclosures were kept artificially on hold during COVID. More on that later. Now that those are out of the way now, all those moratoriums have been removed. The foreclosure activity is now picking up and gaining steam. So you can see the numbers are starting to go up. You can't tell me that foreclosures are not happening. They are happening. Now, one of the things you're going to find is that every area is different. These are national numbers. Ultimately, what counts is what's happening in your state, in your counties, and in the cities that you service. Now, as far as filings, that means that it's not just the filing, but the foreclosure action has actually concluded. The sale date has happened. It's come and gone. The bank has taken possession of the property. The first half of this year, it's up 153% versus the same time last year. So don't believe me, just go to Adam. Go to Adam and pull these stats up yourself. Okay, so what's happening? Because I hear this a lot. It's the craziest stuff that I hear. Well, there's no REOs. The banks aren't taking over properties. Okay, so this number is wrong then. So the fact that lenders foreclosed REO on almost 21,000 properties in the first half of 2022, we just made that up, right? Why not? If I had made it up, I would make it look worse, just for giggles. That's up 30% from the first half of 2021 and 113% from the first half of 2020. You see what's happening here? Now that all the moratoriums are lifted, all that's out of the way, the system is righting itself and people are getting back into that groove. And whatever time people had to work something out with the banks during that time, it's almost done. Look at the top states for REO: Illinois, Michigan, Pennsylvania, California, and my own beloved Florida. These are actual numbers of properties that the bank has taken possession of. So these properties are making their way back into the market as REOs. Now, what I do now, especially since buying the CDPE, I'm constantly Googling and searching for different stats. And one of the things you'll find when you go on Google and you search one thing, you're going to get everything that relates to that coming up all the time. You probably see this, right? So how about this? There's a lot of activity happening on the West Coast. The West is starting to get really, really ugly when it comes to the foreclosure numbers. And check out these stats. This came out in the Orange County Register. California foreclosures jump 116%. Ugly turn or merely moratoriums ending. And this was back from August 11. Well, I think it's a combination of both. Definitely, the moratoriums being lifted are going to cause the foreclosure activity to kick back up again. So this is starting to happen. This was an interesting one I came across. Zombie property count inches up again in third quarter across the United States amid continued rise in foreclosure activity. So what are zombie properties? These are properties that have been abandoned. One of the worst mistakes that somebody in foreclosure can do is leave their property until such time as the bank has actually gone through with the auction or sale date that's finalized. They're still the owner of the property. And my agents, my students, my members are trained to do everything possible to keep them into the home, but a lot of them bug out. So now you see what? 1.3 million residential properties, and I say sit vacant. 1.3 million, right? That's 1 in 78 homes sitting vacant. Do you see what I'm going with this? Whether the bank already owns the house at that point, or even worse, the people are still the owners of the home and they just walked away from it. Did they think that walking away from it meant, okay, bank, it's all yours, take it, I'm done, okay, we're gonna part as friends? No, that doesn't happen at all. What are the top 5 states in the first half as far as foreclosure starts? Look at California and Florida, once again leading the way. Back in 2008, it was Florida, until California started kicking in and sheer numbers overwhelmed. But something that kind of surprised me, look at Tennessee. Look how many foreclosure action in Tennessee. Illinois is up there, and the same thing with Ohio. So here's a homework assignment, right? If I can entice you to get into the distressed property segment, you got to get your own data. You got to start looking at data, not across the United States, but in your state, your counties that you serve, and the cities and neighborhoods that you represent. So what factors are contributing to what appears to be another wave of foreclosures happening? Well, remember I mentioned that all moratoriums across the country are now gone. They've been lifted. Some states held on to the very end. I think Washington, Oregon may be among those, but all states right now, there are no moratoriums in place. Now, when you shut the system down for as long as you did, almost 2 years, it doesn't fire back up overnight. And now what you're seeing is the lenders now, the servicers, starting to get more aggressive and getting foreclosure actions initiated. So that's a huge contributing factor right there. But now I'm going to talk to you about some other things. I want to talk to you about some things that I believe are going to have a major negative impact on our market. And you know what? We could agree to disagree. We'll keep it civil, but I think inflation is having a major, major impact on our industry right now. And you can't have 9.1% in June and 8.5% in July and not feel the impact across the board in the economy. Now, these numbers don't represent what individual commodities and individual items have gone up. Anybody gone to buy groceries lately? Okay. Are you spending a lot more on groceries than you were a couple years ago? Gas, energy, all of these things here, that's having an impact on people's ability to make ends meet. When we talk about the recession in a bit, I get into some heated discussions with folks saying, we're not in a recession. Okay. Maybe not you personally. Remember Ronald Reagan's definition of a recession? A recession is when your neighbor loses their job, but a depression is when you lose your job. Maybe you're not in the position that you're having to decide between filling your tank and putting food on the table. But there are millions of Americans right now that are having to make those decisions on a daily basis. This impacts the affordability, right? Another thing that's contributing huge to affordability factor and the reduction in the affordability factor are the interest rates. We're going to get, the feds have announced, they've made it very clear that their number one priority pretty much is getting inflation under control. And they're going to keep raising the rates until that's done. So the last 2 months, we've had, 75 basis points each time. Now they're saying it could be another 75 basis points. Maybe if we're lucky, it's 50 basis points. But this is impacting people's ability to get qualified. As fewer people can get qualified, inventory starts to go up, demand starts to go down, prices are starting to be driven in what direction? Now we're seeing sales volume being impacted. We had an amazing run, folks. None of us predicted when COVID hit. I remember to this day, when the lockdowns hit Florida, one of the first things I did was schedule a class on how to survive during that time. And we were battening down the hatches. We said, hey guys, start working on rentals, work on rentals because it's going to be difficult for people to buy everything right now. We could not have been more wrong. The industry went insane. Have you noticed now that more and more of the larger companies, more and more of the most respected trainers in the industry are now using the term skills-based more? We're now hearing that the days of being an order taker are essentially done, and we have to get back to basics. We have to get back to learning dialogue and scripts and being able to prospect effectively and overcome objections effectively. Well, why is that? Well, because it's going to get tougher. It's going to get a lot tougher. I say this from firsthand knowledge because I wear different hats. And as I mentioned, I'm a broker. I have 5 locations. I have 240 agents, and I see what's going on with production on a daily basis. I just got this email yesterday, courtesy of the Miami Realtors, Broward County, and it shows July 2022 closed sales for single-family condos and townhomes, down 30% versus July of last year. 30% down in sales. And then the other slide represents down 22.5% new pending sales. So we're seeing demand weakening. We're seeing sellers lowering their prices. We're seeing more inventory. We're seeing properties stay on the market longer. The market has shifted. And then the recession conversation. There are individuals in this country right now that are not feeling the recession at all. In fact, I see things from different lenses now, to a different prism now, I see people spending money like drunken sailors. And I'm thinking, people are not even anticipating that there may be some cutbacks. But you don't hear it on the news that often, or they don't lead with it. But you don't hear about that, 97% of CEOs believe that we are either in a recession now or soon will be in a recession now. You don't hear a lot about how many companies have frozen their hiring. You don't hear as much as you should about companies laying people off and the number of layoffs that are happening. This is real, folks. And, I heard a term the other day, I forget who said it, a stealth layoffs. And that is that, what's going to drive a whole lot more unemployment? Because as of right now, the numbers are very confusing. We're in a recession technically, but people are still spending money. We're in a recession, but there's still a lot of jobs and there's still a lot of openings. So people are confused as to what's happening. But if you notice that now a lot of the big companies, like for example, the Wall Street companies have told their employees, hey, y'all got to come back to work now. You all have to come back to work now. What's going to happen with so many employees that have gotten very, very comfortable working from home and don't want to go back to being in a cubicle, go back to being in an office? How many people are going to decide at that point, I'm not going back to work? And you've heard the term now, gig economy. We become now a gig economy where people work for a little bit, then stop, work for a little bit, then stop. And I'm kind of amazed at how many people never return to the workforce. How are they paying their bills if they're not receiving government money like we used to before? I watch all this because ultimately, are people living off of savings? Are people maxing out their credit cards as a way of being able to maintain this lifestyle? And at what point does all that come to a head? And all of a sudden, the whole thing collapses. I was listening to a speaker at an event recently, and everyone at the event was talking about how great the market was and how beautiful it was and everything else. In other words, they were just passing out Kool-Aid to everybody in the audience. Go figure, real estate brokers and agents telling everybody how wonderful things still are. And one guy stood up there and had the courage to tell it like it is. And he basically said, guys, let me take you back on a history lesson, okay? It was 1928. You know, the roaring 20s. What a great time to live. The coolest clothes, the coolest cars. Try to tell everybody back in 1927 and 1928 that come 1929, we would have a stock market crash that would drive people to jump off buildings, that would drive us into a great recession. And shortly after that, we'd also be in a great world war. People didn't see that coming. And this is, you know, I feel bad in a way because I feel like this guy crying in the wilderness saying, wake up, people. We can't continue doing things as though none of these factors are in place. And you know what? Some people listen, some don't. I don't lose any sleep over it. It is what it is. You either accept it or I get your mind thinking about this and you go, you know what? Let me do my own due diligence. Let me do my own research and I'll decide from there. When I bought the CDPE, I closed on it May 20th of last year. I got a little sprinkling of, this is great. You're a hero. Thanks for bringing it back. And then I had people that were insulting me. They called me a money grab. I had one guy that said, oh, you bought the CDPE. I hope you didn't pay more than $1 for it. Like basically saying, you're an idiot, Tony. We're not going to need the CDPE ever again. Everything is beautiful. A year and a half ago, you couldn't mention housing bubble without being attacked. You know what it reminds me of? 2007, when the word real estate bubble, housing bubble started kind of showing up. And you know who fought the hardest to try to convince everyone that there wasn't a housing bubble? The real estate industry. And this is why when people give me facts or numbers or projections, I look at the source, and oftentimes I don't accept the source. Folks, we as agents, as an industry, we got high on our own supply. We did not want to accept the fact that things were changing. Now Google housing bubble and see how many different things you get. And you tell me if there isn't a shift going on. This person, a Zellman, I guess an investment house or something, you could find this article on fortune.com. This is compliments fortune.com. Evidently, this individual they call a poison ivy. She was the analyst that predicted the 2008 housing bust, okay? She sees US housing prices falling both in 23 and 24. All right, so you find this, okay? I'm not making this up. You go to fortune.com and you pull this up. This came out just yesterday, okay? I looked deeper and it said that this individual outlook, they predict that between 23 and 24 combined, prices are going to drop about 8.8%. That's her opinion, okay? Now, when you compare that to what they fell between 2006 and 2012, they fell back then 27%. All right. Now, prices have gone up over the past 3 years, 43%. Now, so here's the thing. I try to remain balanced, not necessarily fair and balanced, but there's a whole lot of people out there hyping the end of the world. You've seen some of these, right? Market's gonna crash, 40% down and all that. I look at these and I see, okay, what are you going by? What are you saying? And then I see that this individual, as respected as they are, not everyone agrees. Zillow predicts that prices will rise 2.4%. Okay. And then 1.8% in 2023 and 3.5. Oh, that's Goldman Sachs. Okay, so Zillow is saying 2.4%. Goldman Sachs is saying it's going to go up 1.8% in 2023 and 3.5% in 2024. And then at the core logic, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Mortgage Bankers Association are predicting single-digit increases in 2023. All right, so pick whatever one you want, okay? Or maybe strike a balance in the middle. You got the people out there that are saying the sky is falling and they're predicting that it can come down 20, 30, 40%. You got others that are saying, hey, it could be double digits. Or other people say single digits, okay? Nobody knows. How come we're not all on the same page? Aren't we all looking at the same data? But for some reason, everyone has their own opinion or forecast. You know what I preach? Be ready. Just be ready, because here's the bottom line. Regardless of what happens, there's always going to be foreclosures. It may not be as many as 2008, but there's always going to be foreclosures. So there's always going to be a need for someone to step up and work that niche. Let me see what else we see here. Most splendid housing bubbles in America. August update. First price drops appear all in the West. And this is wolfstreet.com. And that came out on August 30th. And it's talking about how you're seeing reduction, sales volume of existing homes plunged by 20% across the US, 31% in California, 41% in San Diego. Now, let me tell you something. The most inquiries I get day in and day out, week in and week out for my class, the CDPE, is from California. So go figure how many brokers and agents are reaching out to me from the West. So yeah, I do believe that another wave is on its way. The question that people ask me all the time, like I can predict this, is will it be as bad as 2008? All right, so here's my answer. This is 2008. You see this big old rock? This is a homeowner standing right there behind on their payments, upside down on their mortgage, and here's a tsunami that's coming their way. It was a 150-footer coming right at them. How is it going to be this time around? Well, I don't think it's going to be a 150-footer. I think it may be a 25-footer. I think it may be a 30-footer. But let me ask you something. To the person standing on that rock, behind on their payments, with or without equity on their property, are they going to be thanking their lucky stars it's not a 100-footer? Or are they bracing for impact because that 30-footer is coming their way? That's my feeling. That's how I take. That's my approach. Inevitably, I'm asked, well, are there going to be more short sales? Yes. Are there going to be as many as before? I don't think so. Why? There's more equity now. Now, I could do a whole class on whether we're really as equity rich as people would want you to believe. I don't think we are. I think that's another area where people are asking us to drink the Kool-Aid. We're an equity rich nation. Property values have gone up. Yeah, But you know what people did as property values went up? Some of you did this. You refinanced. Or you didn't refinance only for rate and terms. That would have been fine. No, 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 no. You took cash out. Oh, no, you didn't refinance once and took cash out. You did it twice and thrice because the money was cheap. It was there. You know what major lenders are doing now that there's hardly any refinance business now? What are they pushing? Help me out. HELOCs. They're pushing HELOCs at 90% loan to value. What does that remind you of? You remember back in 2007, 2006, what we could get HELOCs for back then? So here's the thing, folks. Maybe I'm wrong and people are sitting on a ton of money. Or maybe people are using their homes as ATMs and pulling cash and pulling cash and pulling cash out. And then next thing you know, they can't make their payments anymore. Well, at the end of the day, folks, if they can't stay and they have to go, you will find that more people this time around have equity. Well, the good news for you is you already know what to do. You know how to do regular sales already. But wouldn't it make sense? I mean, work with me here. Wouldn't it just make sense to be prepared to help those that are underwater? For whatever percentage are underwater, that you can help them. And I think that percentage is going to be higher than a lot of people believe. I believe that distressed properties is the unsexiest niche there is. We all want to be luxury brokers, right? You know, luxury. Who doesn't want to be a luxury specialist? You don't see a whole lot of people raising their hands saying, hey, you know what? Put me down for working with distressed properties. But I think that niche can accommodate a lot more of you than, say, the luxury niche. Distressed properties broken down into three simple categories. They can't afford to stay, right? They can't make their mortgage payments. They gotta sell. But it's a regular sale because they have equity. Doesn't it make sense that you know how to approach these individuals, give them all of the pros and cons, right? Show them how staying in the property or losing the property, I should say, to foreclosure can be very devastating. That's one category. REOs, let's talk about this because people sometimes confuse the CDPE with an REO class. That's the last thing we are, is an REO class. You know why? I don't want people to get to the REO stage. When they get to the REO stage, that means they lost the property. They lost it to foreclosure. And I'm about to share with you some of the consequences to foreclosures. That's the last thing we want. And let me tell you something. If you think you can be an REO agent, keep thinking that. Because you probably have as much chance of getting struck by lightning than you would of being an REO agent. And for those of you that have been in the business long enough, you know that most agents don't have enough money to be an REO agent, even if they were selected, because they wouldn't be able to afford to front so many of the expenses that they have to front. So God bless REO agents. I think for those that do it, that's good for them. But you know what a lot of REO agents have told me? They used to get sick to their stomach of escorting people out of a property. They could not. I see Jared, you're shaking your head there, my brother. You've been there, huh? You know what I'm talking about. It's a terrible feeling. So this is not about judgment. This is about, instead of you trying to approach a servicer and begging and pleading and hoping that one day they'll give you a BPO assignment that might someday lead to maybe getting a listing, why don't you just go directly to the people that are in trouble? Why don't you just approach the homeowners directly and say, what are you doing? What are you doing to stay here? And if you can't stay here, what are you doing to exit with the least amount of negative consequences to you? I can help you. See, that homeowner has the authority to list that property with you. Whether they list it as a regular sale or as a short sale, they have the authority to list it with you. Let me talk about short sales for a second. People keep thinking there's so much equity out there. Based on what? I have a neighborhood around the corner from my office right now that one of my agents sold a home there for $60,000. $60,000 over appraised price. $60,000 over appraised price. So when it all comes tumbling down, what is the real value of that home and those comps? You tell me. Now, let me ask you something. There are people out there that are flush with cash. God bless them. What about people that bought FHA? What about people that bought FHA in the last 2 or 3 years with only 3.5% down? So that's all the equity they had going in, and they bought at the top of the market. What's going to happen with any kind of an adjustment? What's going to happen if you combine an adjustment with missed payments? Oh, speaking of missed payments, you know those 7 to 8 million people that got on forbearance agreements when the government offered it? How many of those folks don't understand that they got to pay those payments back? That's what initially motivated me to start teaching short sales again and ultimately buy the CDPE, because I go, wait a minute, this is going to end badly. Oh, but let's go deeper into the weeds. I'm not going to mention any names, but when you're talking about a national lender now saying they're going to test a program that's going to allow people to buy properties with zero money down, zero closing costs. Do you all not see remnants of 2008 all over again? When you have individuals going into a property with zero skin in the game, what's going to happen if they run into any issues at all, being able to afford to make those payments? They were tapped out going in. I'm sorry to be the downer, folks, but this is the stuff I research every single day. But in the midst of chaos, there's always going to be opportunity. And the opportunity is to grow your business, not at the expense of people, but because you help people. If you have a heart to serve distressed homeowners, you will have an opportunity to do well financially while you're doing good for others. I think that's a cool place to be. And that's where my designation comes in. Now, to give you a little bit of insight about how costly foreclosure can be, and this is what I teach. You're getting this for free. Memorize this stuff, because when you encounter someone that's behind on their payments and in foreclosure, they may be prepared to just walk away. They may be prepared to just let the bank take the house. That's the dumbest thing they could do. I'm sorry. That is the dumbest thing that they can do. And if you're equipped, because you have arrows in your quiver, right, to be able to counter their arguments, you're going to be in a position to help more people. For example, a foreclosure stays on their record for up to 7 years. They're ineligible for a government-sponsored loan for maybe 5 to 7 years. But if they do a short sale, let's transition a little bit to short sales. It could be as short as 3 years. They're always going to have to disclose that they had a foreclosure on their record. It could impact their credit significantly. You know what else it impacts? Their ability to either get a job or keep a job. Because many employers will run credit and background checks. And if it's a job that involves handling money, there's a high probability that they would not get the job because they've proven that they don't do really well around money. What about security clearances? So many professions now require a security clearance, yet a security clearance can be invalidated, nullified by having a foreclosure on your record or a bankruptcy on your record. More and more employers try to get a job at a bank, at a title company, with having a bankruptcy or foreclosure on your record. You can't go to work for many government positions, private contractors, TSA, law enforcement, without security clearance. So where am I going with this? Well, while you can't guarantee this, chances are that if they have to do a short sale, it won't impact them the same way. It doesn't have the same impact, the same negative consequences. Now, here's another homework assignment. Please write this down. Find out if your state is a deficiency state, meaning can a lender pursue whatever they didn't recover legally against the homeowner, former homeowners? In other words, they could sue the borrowers to recover their losses. Florida, for example, my home state they used to have 5 years to pursue a deficiency judgment. Now it's 1 year in Florida. In most states, it does allow for it. In fact, I'll share this story. We were sitting across the table from a real estate agent in 2011 that had a condo in foreclosure. And he was just going to let the bank take it. And we at least got him to listen to what we had to say. And my wife, who's an amazing practitioner, she says, well, you don't want the bank to take the house because it's going to destroy your credit. And this guy was kind of cocky. He said, well, you know what? I could care less about my credit. I pay everything cash now. So she was going to counter. She was going to jump back in. And I kind of gently tapped her under the table. She claims that I kicked her under the table. I deny it to this day. But I went ahead and said, look, I get it. But what are you going to do when they come for you? And he stopped to look at me. What do you mean by that? I go, Florida's a deficiency state, my brother. And back then it was five years. I'm looking at your finances right now. While I can't guarantee it, you definitely are a candidate for them to come after you because you got money. You got some sizable assets here. And you know what? He said, okay, you got me. Give me the paperwork. I'll sign it. Took 2 arrows, but he signed a listing agreement. That's what I teach. This is what I teach every day in my CDPE. Here's what we do when it's a short sale. When it's a foreclosure, if you let the property go into foreclosure and they take it, there's no advocacy. There's nobody fighting on your behalf. You didn't submit your financials. They don't know whether you could have made the payments or not. You just lost the house. And if they look at your credit report and they say, man, they're still making the Beamer payments, they're still making the boat payments, they're still going on vacations, but they didn't pay us. Maybe, just maybe, this guy's got money we need to go after. You know what the difference is in a short sale? You put all your cards on the table, you lay it all out there. I'm broke. This is my situation. And you know what? More often than not, significantly more often than not only do we get the short sale approved, but we get full waiver of deficiency. So now, not only did we get them out of foreclosure, they no longer have sleepless nights because they don't have to worry about the bank coming after them for the money. Short sales are an amazing niche. You see, when you go into a listing presentation and you newer agents, you should really pay attention to this part. I call it interviewing. I don't care what you call a listing presentation in your area, you're interviewing for the job. And the sweetest fruit is at the very top. Of course it would. The hardest one to get. Those are equity sales, baby. There you go. Here you are, a brand new agent, never done this before. You show up all nice and pretty and everything at the listing presentation, but you forgot one thing. You forgot a ladder. You ain't ready. They're interviewing 3 other agents. The second one shows up with a really long ladder. Guess it's not their first rodeo, is it? Then the top producer backs up a cherry picker and says, y'all, please move off to the side, and takes the listing just like that. And you're sitting there going, what happened? You know what the difference is in short sales, at least how I teach it? You're not interviewing. You're not being interviewed. You're interviewing them. When you do a proper short sale presentation, they are being interviewed by you. You decide if they have the expectation, the motivation, the proper communication, right? And cooperation to participate in the process. Then and only then do you allow them to retain your services. It is an amazing shift, right? A shift in power and leverage, but it's not for everyone. Short sale, you know how many agents get this wrong? I have fun with this. I have to have fun with it or I'd be drinking all the time. What happens is when I ask agents, what do you got to have in place? What's the most important thing to have in place in order to have a potential short sale? I get some really good answers. Oh, they must be in foreclosure. Oh, they must be this. I said, those are all great answers, but they're not right. The only thing you look for, the first thing you look for is, do they owe more than you can sell the property for? You see how simple that is? Now, what I teach agents is don't go in with blinders. Don't go in assuming they're underwater. Yes, they're in foreclosure. Yes, they can't afford to stay, but they may have equity. And after you run the comps, you're going to determine whether it's a regular listing presentation or a short sale listing presentation. And when it comes to the short sale listing presentation, ain't nobody got a better one than me. So that's what I want to teach you guys. And you know what the bank does? The bank, they agree to losing money. Imagine that. We have to convince the bank that it's in their best interest to lose money now. Why? Because if they don't, they'll probably lose more money later. Think about that. That's the essence of a short sale. And when they say yes, and that's a beautiful day, when they say yes, and yes, with a waiver of deficiency, it allows title to be transferred to a brand new buyer. And guess what? Less consequences to the seller, home for the buyer. You should never lose the argument of a short sale being infinitely preferable to a foreclosure. That shouldn't even, you can't. And if you need help, you need a cheat sheet, here's one for you, because this is included with my class. You have access to my forms. You got access to my disclosures. You got access to my checklist. But don't be fooled. They have to have hardship. They should have a hardship. They should have a monthly income shortfall. And they should be insolvent, which is a fancy word for broke. The ideal candidate, write those two words down. The ideal candidate for a short sale has at least a hardship or two or three, can show proof that they have more month at the end of the money. Think about that for a second. And they're not sitting on a stash of cash that the bank could easily say, but wait a minute, just pull against that money. And don't worry, IRAs and 401ks, they can't be seized. But just because they can't be seized doesn't mean that the bank can't factor it into their decision. I know it's a lot, but this is what I cover. Now, my question to you is, do you have a heart to serve and do you want to learn how to do short sales? If you want to help them, I got you. I got the class. I got the designation. By the way, people will ask, are you affiliated with NAR? No, I'm private, baby. We are a private designation, but we're good. Now, I got two different ways you can take this class: live and in person or via Zoom. I got one more Zoom series I'm doing, and then my online on-demand will be ready. The recordings are all done, but it might take me another 20 to 25 days to get everything polished and everything. So let me go through that. As we continue to grow our membership, I'm teaching agents from all across the country now. By the way, short sales are not state specific. Short sales are the same all over the country. What I teach works for Florida, New Jersey, California, and everybody in between. It's not just a class, it's a membership. The membership includes the right to call yourself a CDPE, a certified distressed property expert, the use of the logo, 24/7 access to our resource library, a completion certificate that you can proudly display, the ability to communicate with other agents within our community and exchange strategies, the ability to send referrals agent to agent within our community. All that is included. Here's a sample of our dashboard, 24/7 access. We got the resources, the forms, the strategies, the scripts, all of these things are in place here. We want this to be a place that you go to often to get the information and help that you need, because it's not easy, but you're not alone. Price for everything I've mentioned is $4.99, but I got a deal for you, and I still got a bonus item for you. But hold that price in your mind: $4.99 for both the course and the first year's membership. After your first year, it's only $99 a year. If I can't show you that $99 is worth spending to stay a CDPE, then it's all good. We'll part as friends. Now, I got live in-person classes coming up, as I mentioned, and I got a Zoom-based series. This is my Zoom. My Zoom is done over 5 2-hour sessions, 5 2-hour sessions. I have a Zoom series right now that I'm going into session 4 of 5. Actually, tomorrow is session 4 of 5. And I have another one that's starting up in October. So I want you to hold that thought. If you're in an area of the country where I don't have a live in-person one yet, you're not out in the code, I can get you into my Zoom. You know what I have people do all the time? They join my Zoom even after it starts because they get the recordings. I've had people join going into session 4 because I send them all the recordings and they get caught up. So that's good. Next Zoom series, if you just want to start from the very beginning, no worries. The next series starts October 12th, and it runs for 5 Wednesdays from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern. If you can't attend, don't stress. Every session is recorded. There is no missed content. Okay, no missed content. In person, I got some coming up in Florida. I got Davie on September 13th, Orlando on September 20th, and Tampa on September 22nd. Now, here's what I need you guys to think about. I'm not in any of those areas, but I'm a broker owner. I'm a team leader. I have some influence with my board. Let's talk. Let's get me out to where you're going. I'm very proud to announce that RE/MAX has endorsed our course on a national level. So as a result of that endorsement, they're going to put me on the road. I'm going to be doing quite a few live events across the country. And at these events, agents from other companies and everything will be able to attend as well. Here's a special deal for you guys putting up with me for the past hour. Then I'm going to get to your questions. $3.99. But you got to use this code right here, save 100. If you just go to the checkout, it's going to be $4.99. So when you go to CDPE.com, decide if the live one or Zoom one is best for you. If it's a Zoom, do you want to jump in on the one I have going on right now and get caught up? Or do you want to just start with the one in October? Those are the options that you're going to have. But write this down, save 100. Now, here's a bonus tip. If you are motivated to do this, work backwards. Here's what I need you to do real quick, and then I'm going to get to your questions. Number 1, I want you to write down 3 categories. I want you to put 3 columns, A, B, and C. 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. A are individuals that have a sale date. Okay, so you're going to look. People say, Tony, where do I find out if there's a sale date? Go on the court's foreclosure page. Okay, look it up via IMAP or RealList, or pay one of these services like, for example, landvoice.com. You need to find out who's in foreclosure, but here's why they're the A-list. Ready? They have a sale date. What does that tell you? They're almost out of time. If they're almost out of time, they're almost out of excuses, right? You focus on them first. What do? If you have phone numbers, you call the phone number. That's why I love LandVoice, because they scrub the numbers against a do not call list, right? The courthouse can give you an address, can give you a name, but can't give you a phone number, right? You either go knock on doors or you go make phone calls. Yeah. Or you can send postcards. Yeah. All of this. I cover all this in my training, but your A lists are the ones you focus on first. Ready? B list. These are individuals that are officially in foreclosure, but do not have a sale date yet. They have more time. Not a lot, but it's not as critical as the ones in the A. Now, who's the last one? The last ones are the ones that are behind on their payments, and you find out from a plethora of different ways you can find out. Word of mouth, they told you, a friend, whatever. But they don't have a sale date. In fact, they don't even have legal action initiated against them. So these folks are going to be the hardest to convince that they have to take action. In fact, they should try to do everything they can to work something out with the bank, right? That's the time to go ahead and do it. And you can get engaged with them early enough in the process that you can play a role in helping them stay. And if that doesn't work out, you already have a connection, a relationship with them. So you might be able to be properly positioned to help them exit the property because you've been so engaged with them from the very beginning. So that's something you can start this afternoon. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share so that we can go ahead and go into the chat area here and see what questions you have. Yep. Let me see how far back. Afternoon. Okay, so we'll go here. People are moving. Yeah, California, New York, and Florida. Absolutely. My in-laws have been in REO for the past 15 years, or maybe they've been in there in the buying and selling them. They maybe history always repeats itself, right? Yes, I can. No equity. Have a good one too. CDPE. Thank you. Okay. Does anybody have a question or comment? I got about a minute or so. I could go a little bit longer. Remember, I'm recording this. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask away? Will you get this recording? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to send this out to everyone that was registered. Can you speak about your Spanish resources? Sí, voy a hablar sobre eso un poquito. Just kidding. Okay, so here's one of the promises I have. I don't have enough Spanish content yet, but we will. In fact, by first quarter of next year, 2023, I've already promised that I will be teaching the CDP in Español también. So that's coming. That's coming. So I ask everyone to, do their best they can. And if somebody has individual questions, they can always write to me. I may not be always available for a phone call, but I take questions all the time. And there's going to be a lot of support for mi gente también. So don't worry about that. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, folks. Well, I like to be prompt. I hope I've given you some things to think about. The movement is back. We're growing, and we're looking for talented people that have a heart to serve. Don't be afraid to share this information with others, and especially others that might be in a position to bring us out to do some live classes in your area. But I thank you so much for your time and attention, and look forward to getting the recording in your hands in the next 2 or 3 hours. Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you on my next Zoom or live class. Take care. Bye-bye.